I'm going to show you what I do when I mix epoxy, what I find to be an easy way for two-part epoxy. Normally, I get this DevCon 5-minute epoxy, but it comes in big tubes, 2 tubes, and you mix each one separate, and it works great. But if you don't have enough to use it up in the time period that the shelf life is good for, then it kind of goes to heck. And so sometimes I find that these smaller tubes like this happens to be JB Weld, there's other companies, but you get in this squeeze tube, and when you squeeze it out, it mixes it out in the proper proportion, and you don't waste as much. And if you don't use it all up, then you're not wasting as much money either. But if I have bigger jobs and I know I'm going to use it, I always take my chance and get this. But as far as mixing, whether you had 2 bottles like this or you get the epoxy in that injector tube, what I use, you want to make sure you got paper towels on hand. Now I use lacquer thinner. You may not want to use that, but you want something to get your hands clean, okay, because this stuff can be really sticky and you don't want to get it all around. So again, I use lacquer thinner in a spray bottle. I'm not suggesting you use that, but use something to clean up. Of course, you'll have your epoxy, either 2-part mix, however you got it. And with this particular JB Weld, they give you like this tongue depressor, this small. Problem with that is it's a one-time use. And I don't like these, so I don't use this. What I use are regular old toothpicks. And I'll show you here. Toothpicks just work great. So I start out with just wax paper. And this is what I'm going to use to mix it on. Because you can mix it on there, and then when you're done, wrap it up and throw it out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start out with some toothpicks on the side, readily available for me to use. Because not only will I use these to stir it up with, to mix it, I will also then get a new one to get into the epoxy and then apply it to the project. And I always like to have extra ones because if this gets messy or something like that, I've always got other ones to go to. Now let me give you something very important. When you do this, make sure that there are no pets around, cats, dogs, any other pets, because this stuff is very wicked. I mean, if you weren't attentive and a animal came up, a pet of yours came up and were to try to eat this or lick this or anything, could be big trouble. Get into it with its paws. So the best thing is make sure there's no pets or children around, and be very careful when using this, just because of the fact that you don't want them to get into this and swallow it, or because this is like a 5-minute epoxy, and there's a reason why it says 5 minutes. It hardens very quick, or at least will set up. So what I'm going to do here, and I've already used a little bit out of this stuff is really nice for somebody that doesn't use a lot of it. Really, these tubes, I can't say enough about it. They come with this tip that doesn't stick. You see there, I can take it off. It seals it up. So these are really nice. So you take the tip off. There we go. Okay. And you'll see the 2 ends here where the product will come out. And so I like to get down to the surface. I'm going to just put a little of this out for right now. I'm not really doing a project. So right there, that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to put the cap back on. Let me get this lined up here. Just like that. Get that out of the way. Now I'll take my first toothpick, and this is what I'm going to use to mix it up. Just like that. Get a nice consistency. Mix it all up. And then I'll take my other toothpicks, and this is the toothpick, or these other ones, that I will use to get just the right amount to spread it around, whatever that project is. Okay, and if this gets too messy, once I've applied it, then I go to my other one. And that's what I like about this small, narrow toothpick versus this big tongue depressor thing they give you with the glue, because this is a one-time use even if it did work, so you have to have something. And again, I find these toothpicks work great. And if you do get anything on your hand, you'll have your cleaner and your paper towels readily available, and get that off your hands, or any, immediately. You don't want that to set up. Okay, so you've got your project glued, you've got that set to the side. Then what I do is I will take this wax paper with the epoxy that's left over, and I will put it somewhere out of the reach of anybody, and I will hang on to that until it dries. Now here's some wax paper and epoxy from a job that I did here a while back, and what I do is I hang on to that, and then I'll just check it after 5-10 minutes. Just put my hand in there and make sure that it has set up properly, and then that way I know that the project has set up, at least has set up. It may take a little longer to cure, but just to check that. Then, as a safety, throw it away. Make sure it's in the garbage, that again, that no pets can get to it. And one final thing, it should go without saying, always look at the directions of whatever brand you're using to make sure you're using it in the proper temperature range, and that the material that it's good for, and also the cure time before you would actually put the project into use.